Welcome back, everybody. Apologies for the delay, but we are indeed back. And this is week number 2 of the European Qualifier for the Quake World Championship. We're still very early on in this 500-man tournament, of which it's been pretty interesting already. But our first series, we're going to be moving on to our next series now, which I believe is between Nerchio and pobdoq. So apologies if I've butchered the names, but we see it right there. Nerchio versus pobdoq. I'm sure that's correct.
So these are two players that I personally haven't heard of or seen them play yet, which is something we talked about quite heavily last week. Is something we were hoping to see. Obviously, Quake being it's got such a legacy behind it, right? It's been such a cornerstone in the FPS genre as a whole, especially competitively. But it's been quite a while since there was a last mainstream Quake that was played on the big stage. And Champions being so new and there being such a gap in between, I think does sort of open up those floodgates for the potential for new players and new talent to come through that might have been playing this whole time. Or who knows, maybe they started with this and they've already got used to sort of, the universal mechanics and how to play Quake as a whole. And now they're ready to play competitively and go against some of, the well-established legendary players. And I think there's been enough time, and I hope that's something we see.
Well, I think that's naturally going to become a little bit more easy for these players the longer these weeks will go on. Because bear in mind, it's 8 players a week that will qualify, which means that as each week goes on, some of these absolute cream of the crop players that have already qualified will not be in the bracket, which almost opens up a higher scope for upcoming talent or players that are newer to the franchise. So right there, again, more sort of traditional picks that we see. Blood Run being the map we're playing first. Very sort of close calls. Again, a classic map. But a map that in particular, I see Anarchy in the teams there. Now, Anarchy on Blood Run in particular, I mean, he has a lot of space to just fly around the map. He's been really useful picked first on this map in particular, I think.
Whenever we've seen Anarchy, and I could be wrong here, but as far as I'm aware, every time we've seen Anarchy on a duel team, he has been picked first. Aside from maybe in the rounds, if they're
maybe
trying to
95% of the time at a push.
The vast majority we're seeing him first, because if you can sort of start to build that momentum with him and you start getting those injections and you start adding up that max health pool, because that's a big thing, right? So when it adds that health value every time you inject, to the point that, maybe you can tank a rail, maybe you can start to tank some more rockets. But the big one is you don't die in one rail if you haven't got any armor up, which is something we find quite prominent in 1v1s. And obviously, if you've got Anarchy first, you have the longest possible amount of time, should you be having a good round, to start adding up to their health pool, instead of having him last and have to spend all that time when you're on the back.
Yeah, I was actually about to point that out, in that I think that's one of the main reasons we do see him go first, because he's very snowbally champion, especially if you play aggressively. But ultimately, if you pick him first, you have that higher chance of getting 6 injections. Bear in mind, you need to get 6 injections to tank more than one rail. But again, if an Anarchy can survive a rail and still fight you, he's quite annoying. Yeah, it's a complete game changer. Wow, didn't actually catch sight of him at the bottom. Maybe thought he was going to be up top and underneath.
However, survive, but right again, Nerchio is getting straight in with these rails, and he connects the majority of them, and already has taken out pobdoq's Anarchy, forcing out this Blazkowicz.
Well, sometimes Anarchy just will not be allowed to get going, and that was one of those examples.
He's sitting down, he's waiting for him to pick up the heavy armor. Nerchio trying. Oh no, he's behind him! He got the jump on him!
But to be honest, took minimal damage in the process.
It's because he was ready, right? As soon as he realized he was in a bad situation, using that die rob to secure the objective, he was trying to cover himself.
Oh, speaking of ability, going in with the dual wield, taking a little bit of damage, but wow! Straight in with the rocket as well. You almost expected him to go down there, but he was just sitting pretty far enough away, using that wall as cover, not taking too much of the LG, and just really good rocket placement. Speaking of good rocket placement, gets another one, and now pobdoq is in humongous trouble, and he's already 2 champions down. Bear in mind, Mega Health is down, Heavy Armor is also down. pobdoq with that very small default health pool, trying to shoot those prediction rockets, but Ranger just sort of laughing in the face of it. Still super ready to go.
We see quite a lot of Ranger, though, across the board in duel. Just such a versatile champion, and that die roll by itself, giving him that mobility and that burst damage. I mean, I can kind of see why. It doesn't seem like there's really a map that he's a bad pick on.
Using a lot of rockets, trying to sort of command that Mega, getting knocked straight into it, using the die roll progressively, does manage to trade the frag. That 100 damage rocket was basically all he needed to trade, I think. Without it, maybe not, but either way, that's 1 round on the board already. Really good.
Round begins.
In DDO, that first round, quite a quick round in comparison to what we saw from our first set of the night. It looks like, again, maybe it's just Nerchio having that confidence, but speaking of which, to start with Nyx this time instead of Ranger. And pobdoq, once again, that Anarchy, as expected.
Didn't really get the chance to get going too much in the last round. Bear in mind with actually any of the champions, let alone Anarchy, but if he can get off to a better start right here, maybe, wow, the rail does miss ever so slightly. Forced to use the injection already to get away. Bear in mind, 76 HP. That's still not enough to survive a rail just yet.
It is when he has that 50 armor though. Having armor on these squishier champions is so important. Like I said, the Ghost Walk is popped. Nerchio going to go, oh, the aggressive Ghost Walk, but he walks straight into a rocket, and pobdoq is ready to make him pay for that aggression.
Really nice prediction and fantastically executed on the prediction. But wow, getting a really good spawn so close to Anarchy. The rockets, I mean, it didn't even need the acid at that stage. The acid, regardless, was going to kill, but the rockets did the job. And now it's 2-2.
It's quite a way away on though on the mega health and the heavy armor, so it can be contested in a little while. Right now, Nerchio sort of positioning himself near the heavy armor. Just wanting to go around in, cycling around. Yeah, topping up on armor, very important to have, especially against Blazkowicz, who just wants to burst you down.
I mean, that's the factor. That really is the important element right here, is that there's one champion that's going to shred the health of a tanky champion. It's going to be Blazkowicz going straight in. Predictable advancement. Sitting in the health to try and get a little bit, but it wasn't enough. pobdoq gets the necessary rail, and now he is up 2 champions to 1.
That would have been a beautiful combination of weapons though. If he got that rocket, oh, and Nerchio tries to go in with the dire roll, but it doesn't connect. And once again, Blazkowicz showing why he does so much damage and evening things out at 1 round apiece.
Yeah, it's going to be 1-1. I think it was really well played at the last minute. And even though he got that sort of prediction rocket, just he could have taken big damage right there.
If he followed up with a rail and didn't miss it, that would have been a game changer. But unfortunately, that is the essence of the railgun, right? It can be so hard to hit at times, and especially how much impact it can make if you're successful. But one miss can be the difference.
A little bit of an exchange over by Rocket, but neither player punished too hard, really. The sort of middle of the map. This is where we see all the fights take place. I mean, so many important items, with the exception of the rocket launcher, are in the center here. Very close to lightning gun, very close to rail. Heavy armor, mega health, they're all right near here.
Oh, he's by a hair's length.
Yeah, he's missed 2 rails so far.
Oh, and he missed the heavy armor. But could have been a blessing in disguise, as Nerchio was waiting down the bottom to rail him if he went for it.
Well, I think either way, he definitely took damage. So, miss or no miss, he took a rail for his trouble. Yeah, he has to try and get out of there already, like a bit of a sort of snap rail into an immediate runaway. I don't think he wants to stay there, especially with how much armor. Wow, good prediction. Is it going to be enough, though, with how weak he is? All Nerchio needs is 1 rail at any stage. I mean, you can see how on edge pobdoq is playing. Like, he is staying agile at all times, which is the key of playing Anarchy, really, especially in this situation where you don't want to get tagged by a single rail.
He has got armor, though. He's going to survive it now, albeit not by much. There's that dire orb just to get the heavy armor. Kenshin with a ton of LG on the way down, but still down on health. This is the difference. You have a Ranger who has quite a generous standard amount of health and armor, and Anarchy, the opposite end of the spectrum. You can see the sort of like quick exchanges, how quickly it can go from bad to worse if you're not quite ready to maximize that damage. So Varrica said though, LG connects. Nerchio is either player going to chase here. It looks like they're quite content backing up.
Yeah, there's more predictions trying to run in and snap up. The Mega does manage to get it. The dire orb gets used, but now he's got nothing to escape with if he needs it. But at this stage, again, neither player looking to engage too heavily. pobdoq really bold.
Oh, he has a teleporter.
Oh, so many rails.
So important.
So many rails have failed to connect. Every single one of them would have been so important. That would have absolutely fragged Nerchio. He needs to clean up the execution on this. Again, running out. No more LG to work with, so he's going to be forced to either rail or rocket if he wants to do it. And the rails so far have not been on point this round.
And again, though, you can see just how quickly these guys are able to just top themselves up in between. So even though you get them low, you didn't have too long to really push that advantage. He knows the dire orb's just been used, but eats a rail. This could be dangerous. Always going, no, not going to chase. Oh no, and he injects so he can't get the damage.
Yeah, Nerchio's going to be going in. But actually, if he got hit by the rail, he still would have died. He had no armor there.
Let's go this passive style, connects that rail. You can see the difference though between when they miss and when they hit, how quickly they realize they've now got the upper hand.
Speaking of upper hand, that did actually force Nerchio away for just long enough. Again, trying to use the dire orb for damage, but again, he's no, hits the wall! Cannot chase because of it. Nerchio was so close to death. If only pobdoq did not hit the wall with that rocket, we might have seen a frag there.
But he is able to at least get the heavy armor. It's not a complete disaster, and still has the advantage here. The dire orb, is it back yet? I don't quite know. Oh, and there we go. That rocket he used just to try and keep Nerchio away connects and takes the frag. Nerchio walking straight into that one.
Now, wasting no time going in with the Sorlag. In these up-close and personal exchanges, if Nerchio gets nicely stacked with that health and armor, all he has to do really is pepper a couple of rockets into that acid spit, and he is going to be absolutely laughing with how much damage Anarchy takes.
Get him stuck up to the LG, though. He has run out of rockets, though, so has to be careful. on that front. Still has plenty of rail and LG ready to go.
Well, the one thing to bear in mind is that pobdoq, I mean, we talk about like how snowbally this can be. Speaking of which, actually forced to run away again. He's going to take that tick damage, but it's going to be minimal damage at this stage. And at this stage now, he's going to be really careful. Can't take any more rails. Bear in mind now that 50 health is going to be okay.
Nerchio on that, just magic pixel of life, but quickly able to get one small pickup, two small pickups.
Well, I think pay attention to the right-hand side of the screen, right? pobdoq has so many weapons. Speaking of which, using the LG, now Nerchio down to that final Nyx. But
now that's the important 1 minute warning. These guys have been playing so passive this whole time. But now we're down to the situation that pobdoq has that 3 champions and Nerchio just on Nyx. So if a minute goes by and Nerchio isn't able to even things out, this round is going to go to pobdoq.
He hasn't seen Nerchio go invisible. Nerchio's going to try and go in for the kill, but commits suicide. Maybe try and actually frag him before the Mega, but because he picked up the Mega, there was no way that Rocket was going to do it.
No, definitely not, but that can be the dangerous round when you've got 2 squishy characters fighting point blank with a Rocket. It's quite easy to frag yourself if you're losing track of how much damage you're taking, but at the same time, I mean, like you said, right, the timer was against him in that situation. He had to do something dramatic. He did beat him to the Mega, but is it going to matter though? Forced to use the injection. He's taken so much damage. The victory element is going to be that the Mega health is down, but he took a lot of damage for that. And again, another missed rail. Look at how much health and armor Nerchio has because of that. But this is the difference in rounds, right? Where the very first round, pobdoq lost his Anarchy immediately. The second the round started, and it was hard for him to recover, but right now, he's kept this Anarchy. He's being super aggressive. Speaking of which, really just duck, dive, dip, and dodging all of those rockets. Getting that first round, and just like that, look at that. Down to Sorlag already. Fast turnaround. Well, it looks like pobdoq, if anything, is like supremely confident on this Anarchy, because the one round he lost it, he did seem to struggle quite a bit. Now he's just held on to it for a couple rounds straight, looking a lot more comfortable.
Well, Sorlag's going to be able to shred if he catches him up close, but Anarchy is one of those champions that can get away out of that effective Sorlag range quite easily. The patient's waiting for him around. Actually, didn't clock him. He did not see him there at all.
Setting up with the cheeky stuff behind, waiting in ambush.
If only pobdoq committed to that path, actually. Maybe have walked right into it. Hang on a minute, 100 damage Rocket, forced to run away again, but the ticking damage again. Pretty real right there. Those ticks hurt Anarchy so much.
Indeed, but just like that, he will top himself back up again. It's going to be quite a good cooldown on that acid spit though, so Nerchio's got to be a bit more careful.
Oh, nice. Wow,
a lot of
72 and then 100, but cannot land that final hit. Absolutely can't chase. I mean, it's no wonder he tried to head off there. He didn't try and head off, I should say. But the lightning gun, I mean, he had like barely any health. That was a free kill. And already down to Nyx. Again, Nerchio is in big trouble. Has not had an answer for this Anarchy since the first round.
That's the thing though, pobdoq on this Anarchy just has so much control and he just completely... he's managing the reins of how this match is going and gets himself another round. First map goes to him, but it all just came down to momentum. As soon as he controlled all those pickups, he was getting the frags constantly, and Nerchio just couldn't make it work.
So we saw what happens when you do deal with Anarchy immediately, and then in the same game, we saw what happens when you don't deal with Anarchy immediately. I mean, he is quite possibly one of the biggest snowball characters in the game.
Because he can become a bit of a pain in the neck.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because it's just a matter of how fast he can rotate around the map, how many items he can control. Because of that, his mobility, allowing him to take less risks, doesn't have to really take much rocket jumps to navigate certain areas of the map, so he's not doing as much damage to himself. He's harder to rail, not just because of his hitbox size, but because of his just sheer speed. And as we mentioned, even though we didn't really see it too much, you don't really see it too much in duel, but when he reaches that stage of which he's on 81 HP, and even without armor can finally tank a rail. He's a very sort of important character to make sure you know how to survive with. And right there, he survived really well. Now we're down to our second map.
Well, Anarchy's probably one of the more common champions we've seen across the board. I mean, especially Sunday alone, looking back on some of these results we had from Sunday.
He was very popular.
I think it's safe to say that Nyx or Anarchy is on almost every team we see. I'm just looking through some of these lineups we saw on Sunday, and one of the two is on every team, if not both. I think one of the most common ones we see is Nyx, Anarchy, and Ranger, or Nyx, Anarchy, and Blazkowicz. That seems to be the most common team comp we see so far, but that's not without good reason. It's because they're very effective on the majority of the maps, and even then, when we saw him get knocked onto Blazkowicz, he did have that sort of shred damage potential, and but that's the beauty of Quake 1v1, right? You don't just put so much emphasis on one champion. You have to play a team. You have to be competent with all three of them. And as I can say that, Corrupted Keep will be our next map, so that would be Nerchio's choice. And Nerchio himself now picking up Anarchy. So fighting fire with fire.
Yeah, definitely not surprised to see this result at all. So it's going to be Anarchy and Nyx. Very traditional, going back in with that Sorlag as well. But Sorlag on Corrupted Keep now. We know Sorlag is effective in duel anyway, particularly against those small champions because of their low health pool and how much damage she gets when she gets a successful sequence of the acid. But on Corrupted Keep in particular, because there's no railgun, she can sort of deny areas of the screen on the map, I should say, much easier with the acid. You know, she can really sort of just scatter it around heavy armor, scatter it around that mega health location. Even important pickups that you kind of almost have to get, like the rocket launcher, you got to get that. Lightning gun, you got to get that. But they're all areas that if you catch Sorlag right there, she's in a great situation because she's got more health than you. She's going to take those exchanges, and if she's got acid, you can't really compete with the damage. And again, minimal distance to run away. It's very small and enclosed, a lot of little twists and turns here and there. It's, on one hand, it's easy to get away. On the other hand, if she catches you point blank, it's difficult to do that.
Well, Corrupted Keep just seems to really emphasize that on all fronts, though. You can run away, you just have less space to do so.
Yeah.
You can fight, you just have less space to do so. You can take out characters like Anarchy and pin them down because they haven't got as much room to run away, but there's no rails, so you can't really, you know, burst them down as easily. So Corrupted Keep just really sort of like flips around that sort of dual style, I suppose.
Now, Nerchio going with, even though they've both gone with Anarchy this time, we do still see Nyx get picked first. Was kind of expecting to see like almost like an Anarchy mirror almost immediately. Go and head off. However, bear in mind, Nerchio with that rocket on deck doesn't manage to quite get anything. And pobdoq with all of that armor already. Anarchy with armor is quite scary. 10 seconds until that mega health. No doubt both players trying to really command that very important pickup right here. No damage on those rockets, so pobdoq, no fear going in and trying to snatch it up, no doubt. And does get that mega health already. Nerchio forced to run away, but they're looking to make that sequence towards heavy armor as well. It does spawn, pobdoq gets it and forces the ghost walk. This is not a great start for Nerchio at all. Being aggressive with the lightning gun, can he get a rocket? No, misses so many. And now with 8 health left to work with, that is not a good situation at all.
You can see how hard it can be to get those predictive rockets on Anarchy, who just zips around all over the place. And as soon as you miss one, you miss another, and you miss another.
I think a couple of those rockets may have actually gone through that window as well, and they didn't connect at all.
Oh, pobdoq's taking the fight, and he will take the first frag with confidence. Once again, manages to secure the heavy armor as well, so he's got the timers on both of them now. Nerchio put on this Sorlag that we've seen him take out and kill before, but this is the shred.
This is the shred, but it wasn't enough. He had just way too much armor. And even though he got caught in that bad spot, he had more than enough armor to stay there and fight, and just very confident play. pobdoq staying there and not moving. Forced to Anarchy last. Nerchio is definitely not going with like a sort of... When you see Anarchy pick last, it's not for like a longevity reason. I think it's almost like a last-minute trump card. It's almost like at the last minute, just get around as quickly as possible. And it's not to snowball, it's to just not get caught on a bad spawn.
Speaking of which, though, that Anarchy, the mirror, the Anarchy versus Anarchy going on right now, but Nerchio with so much more work to do, down 2 champions and an entire map. I mean, he's got to build some momentum here, if he can, but I mean, pobdoq's not making it easy. It's Anarchy looking very dangerous.
Well, the one thing to take away from this is that pobdoq hasn't been forced to use his injection at all, so he's actually only been able to get 1 extra HP on top of what he already had by default. So it's not going to be a matter of an Anarchy with a lot of health versus an Anarchy with no health by default. It's only going to be 1 HP difference. However, catches him off guard.
Yeah, however, though, you know, if one of them has control of mega health, he's always going to be a bit healthier in these fights, so he's always going to be a bit more tanky.
Yeah,
Nerchio using that injection, so it's going to have it now for this next fight.
He didn't actually use it to survive longer either. He used it just to get out of there. He did not want to get caught in that bad hallway right there and get tagged by all those rockets.
Oh, this is the rocket. Actually does damage to himself in the process, but not quite enough.
Now, Nerchio's going to need to win this exchange. However, pobdoq going in with the chase. Is he ready for him to chase it? Look how much mobility this champion has. However, because they both have it, actually having a hard time of catching it. Tries to head him off, does manage to get it, catches 2 rockets, but with the injection ready to go. Hang on a minute, going in with the chase. Nerchio, is he going to chase this one down?
Looks like he is. He knows the mega health's coming up, and there we go. Nerchio gets the first frag, and this could be the start of the snowball that he needs. But pobdoq put on this Blazkowicz, and on a squishy character like Anarchy, you know how quickly he can be deleted. But it will mean that pobdoq's got to be on point with his aiming, because you know how hard it can be to hit this character in that close range. And immediately using the injection, using it before the fight even started. He's taken so much damage, he's trying to just stay as far away as possible, but now the machine gun with the hit scan. 1 HP left, and he somehow survives. by the skin of his teeth. Nerchio stays alive. 1 minute and a half to go. pobdoq still getting aggressive. Doesn't want to let him tank up here. Mega Health coming up, but that prediction rocket, the cheeky stuff coming out from pobdoq. That confidence.
That was just very delicious. I like that very much.
He just teleported into the face of death itself.
And that rocket was gone for so long as well. Like, that was a late rocket. Either way, that's 1 round up. pobdoq still looking really dominant, going straight in with the Anarchy first. Again, to the surprise of no one. Nerchio going with that Nyx pick and catching him in a bad spot. Immediately getting those 2 rockets, forcing Anarchy off immediately. Now, we saw this in the first map. The second we got rid of Anarchy straight away, the round did very comfortably go to Nerchio. So will he be able to repeat that?
Oh, there we go, swapping that Ghost Walk out, trading it out for the dual wheel. The dual having a much longer cooldown to it. So good about Nerchio's favor, but gets caught from below. Not quite enough damage to make him. Oh, that rocket's going to add up very fast. pobdoq put in a bit of a negative situation so far.
Yeah, bear in mind, he's been able to get the Mega trying to head him off and catches him before they even get to fight for the heavy armor. So on top of getting a frag and evening things out, pobdoq was also rewarded with that heavy armor pickup too. Sorlag versus Blazkowicz though. We'll see what happens.
Those rockets coming through. Interesting, we can see him sort of put up that corner. I mean, being sort of trapped behind that statue seems to be, I don't want to say a death sentence, but not a very comfortable situation to get out of. As the Mega Health 2, nowhere to run. Nerchio falls down again. It seems like when you really back yourself to that wall, I mean, we see these guys get so aggressive there because there's just such little space to get away.
If pobdoq can scout him early, he has got that dual available. Is he going to go for it? He does indeed. Catches it and just... He had immediately used the injection for the full health, and within half a second it was all gone.
That's Mr. Blazkowicz for you. That's what he does. He shreds that health down, and if he can catch you out in the open, he is just going to annihilate. And the LG being the weapon of choice all too often in that situation.
That's going to be match point for pobdoq. All he has to do now is win this round. He's going to move on very comfortably in this bracket, and not even interested in fighting. I mean, the default SMG, he can't really fight with that little amount of damage output. Opting to just try and get stacked up instead. Catches the lightning gun though. In some ways now, on this map, that's what you need.
Here, pobdoq being on match point already. He lost his Anarchy very, very early last time. It could be happening the same thing here. But we've seen
that rocket missed!
We've seen how lethal he can be on Blazkowicz by himself too. So he doesn't have just the one champion. The Ghost Walk comes out, he can be aggressive. He tries to get him on the way out, but he picks up the Mega Health, so immediately Nerchio has to run away.
But unfortunately, because Nerchio was not in control of when he came out of Ghost Walk, he allowed pobdoq to uncontested take that Mega Health. I feel like using it right there might have been a bit of a mistake.
I think this might be the beginning of the end, because he has the Mega Health, he has the heavy armor as well. He's caught Nerchio on the spawn already, walks into armor, but isn't carrying. Oh no, he hurts himself, but the injection is popped just to keep him alive. And Nerchio, a direct rocket, and I think this might be all she wrote, unless Nerchio can make a miracle happen at the moment.
Well, pobdoq knew just how much armor and health pickups were nearby. He was very confident in how he ran away, rotated to collect the man just like that. Nerchio goes down again. And without losing Anarchy in this final round, pobdoq will move on in this bracket.
Indeed, he will. Taking that second map, Corrupted Keep goes in the way of him as well. And again, he just comes down to, I know we keep saying it, but it really is true, that snowball effect. When you get that Anarchy first and you don't take him down, or even worse, when you really try and you go all in and you try and get rid of him, but you lose in the process, and then he gets control of the Mega Health, and then he gets control of the heavy armor. I mean, how do you stop that?
Well, clearly the way you stop him is to catch him really early, but that is easier said than done when you've got a really good player behind the wheel. And I think it was just the story that kept on being told over and over again. If you don't get Anarchy early, he will continue that momentum and just snowball. And right there, just so many direct rockets as well. Those really pinpoint, very necessary projectiles that we would consistently see pobdoq establish. Just really well played. You know, like this guy, when he actually did rockets in particular, they almost always counted. Look at these replays, how much damage he's dishing out when he lands a rocket. Obviously, he walked into that one in that replay, but the point still stands. He did really well. Now, this right here was that was just disgusting.
That was the beauty shot right there. The highlight of the entire series. That one sidekick rocket launcher. Look at that sort of, how did this go at the end? There was that direct rocket. That was the 100 damage at the end that sealed the deal for poor old Sorlag.
Well, normally when you see Anarchy in that situation, it's like, right, I've doing all this damage to him, and I've now ticked him away with the acid, and he's gonna be dead. But pobdoq knew just that he had armor next to him, he had the 2 healths underneath, he had the health behind him as well. So while he's kind of doing damage, he's almost like just using Anarchy speed to just rotate around that small area and just pick up every ounce of health and armor. So when he finally caught him in that bad situation, when he got that frag, he was like super, super healthy again. But he will be moving on in this bracket, so good luck to him. Maybe we'll see him later on. While we get our next match underway, we're going to go for a quick break, and we'll be right back.